Hello and welcome to the fifth and last installment of Meetings with History Online. My name is Marta Kopiniak and today, for the last time, I will be your guide in our journey through history. The economic state of the People's Republic of Poland was dire, even before the introduction of martial law. This was reflected in the strikers calling for introduction of food coupons for meat, which were supposed to help regulate the market. After the introduction of martial law, the situation was even worse. There were shortages of even the most basic of products. They were simply not in shops. And in the streets, there were many theories as to what exactly happens to all the products when they are not in the shops. Were they really bought out by black market traders? Were they perhaps sold abroad? Or perhaps they were just stored in a warehouse in preparation for a real war? Or perhaps they really just did not exist. No matter the reason, the situation was dire. If you didn't have any connections or didn't know how to push through the crowd, you were often left with very little to live on. The situation was even worse in families where the husband was detained for opposition work and the wife was left alone with the kids, with no means of getting her own money, as she has never worked outside of home in her life. For people in families like this, packages with help were a godsend. They sometimes came from family members who were better off or lived in less affected parts of the country. But for the most part, they were part of humanitarian transport that came from countries like Germany, France, Belgium, Austria, Norway, and many others. They usually contained food, clothes, medicine, and baby formula. And for the holidays, chocolate and oranges, luxury items. But humanitarian transports also sometimes contained radio, medical, and printing equipment for the democratic underground. The end of martial law came on July 22nd, 1983, 1.5 years after it was implemented. Wrocław bore the weight of 5 victims of the regime during this time. Tadeusz Kostecki, a 62-year-old delegate to a polytechnic strike, died of a heart attack after being brutally beaten by ZOMO on the night of December 14th, 1981. And Antoni Schneider, a 79-year-old retired farmer who was a bystander of the demonstrations during the Battle of Wrocław, was beaten by ZOMO while returning home after the curfew. The terror dispatched by militia and other organizations to pacify the society was an everyday occurrence. Every little insubordination or suspicious activity could get you arrested, beaten, or even shot at. The terror was supposed to pacify and calm the society, but it did the exact opposite. It created a mass trauma that many people live with to this day. The Catholic Church was always a natural ally to any democratic opposition, since they themselves were persecuted and seen by the authorities as an organization that was stealing people's loyalty from them. The Church and its priests were also a source of comfort for people affected by the negative aspects of the communist rule. It will then come as no surprise that the Catholic Church played a massive part in organizing help during the martial law. The Archbishop's Charitable Committee, created in 1982, helped organize and distribute all the help that came in the humanitarian transports. And because of the fact that Archbishop Gulbinowicz took the organization under his wing, all the unloading of the humanitarian transports took place on church property, which was more or less off limits for any agency or organization of the state that would like to inspect them. This enabled the committee to provide the solidarity in the underground and other organizations with all the help they needed. Pope John Paul II was a significant figure in Polish people's fight for freedom and democracy. His pilgrimages to Poland showed the people their numbers. In a mass he celebrated in Partynice, there were millions of them. And if those millions took action, no one could stop them. 1989, the last year of Polish People's Republic, began with no one actually hoping for the turn of events that actually took place. The 12 months of that year marked a swift decay of the Communist Party, although the secret police functioned until the end. The round table talks, negotiations between the communist authorities and the democratic opposition on a matter of reforms, created a framework for organizing a partially free election for Sejm and Senate, as well as many other social and political agreements, although they were not liked by everyone. The last major intervention of ZOMO in Wrocław was actually because of the fact that the Fighting Solidarity organized a demonstration against the roundtable talks and the election. The election on June 4th, 1989 became immortalized nationwide by posters of Gary Cooper going to vote for Solidarity, and locally in Wrocław by posters with the rising sun of democracy. The opposition, of course, won the elections, with Barbara Labuda and Karol Modzelewski, along with 4 other candidates, winning in the Wrocław district. The first fully democratic elections after World War II took place in the year 1990, and those were the elections for the local government. During the campaign, there were many personal changes made in many institutions in Wrocław, which in turn meant that people from Solidarity could take up positions in those institutions. On May 27, 1990, Solidarity won the elections with 67 out of 70 of their candidates becoming members of the city council. Victory in the 1990 elections meant that for the next 25 years, Wrocław was governed by people from Solidarity and has gained the reputation of one of the most politically stable local governments in Poland. After the fall of communism, Wrocław has flourished in many aspects of the city's life. During the years, it has become both a topic and character of many books. Crime novels author Marek Krajewski has set his books in the realities of interwar Breslau. He is a master at bringing back the memory of a city destroyed by the post-war changes in politics. He is also the creator of Commissioner Eberhard Mock, who is a complicated man with a gift for solving crime. Another book, of which Wrocław is the topic, is Microcosm, Portrait of a Central European City, by Norman Davies and Roger Moorhouse, which explores the lives of Wrocław citizens along the centuries, tries to overcome the rivalry of Wrocław and Breslau, and looks at the city's history from a wider, regional and European perspective. Another important event in which Wrocław took part in was Euro 2012, when the city was host of a series of matches in the European Championships. One of the most important investments of that time was the building of a stadium, which later paid off as the 3 matches played in Wrocław attracted over 300,000 sports fans from Poland and abroad. The last addition to our exhibition, Books by Ms. Olga Tokarczuk, showcase the vivid, living thing that is Wrocław as a city, as Ms. Tokarczuk has become the most important citizen of Wrocław upon receiving the 2018 Nobel Literature Prize. However, the construction of a modern democratic city suddenly came to a halt in 1997, when a huge flood struck the region. The Millennium Flood, as it is known, reached Wrocław on July 12, 1997, and flowed through the city in 2 stages. Police and army units, as well as regular people, struggled to save lives, homes, animals, and national heritage. 56 people died as a result of the flood, and damages were assessed at $3.5 billion. This event shaped a whole generation, and many people describe it as the most important event in their lives. The last stop on our journey through history is this color-free mural behind me, which presents the history of Wrocław in a quiet and unconventional way. There is Eberhard Mock, there is the Guinness Guitar Record, and there is also the Millennium Flood. But there is also Pope John Paul II, who is the author of words perhaps best describing our city, that belonged to others before us. He described Wrocław as a meeting place, a place that unites people, where you can feel at home whether you were born here, whether you decided to make this place your home, or perhaps are just visiting for a couple of hours to visit a museum. This concludes the series of Meetings with History Online. Thank you for being here with us today and before, and we hope to see you in person at the Depot History Center in Wrocław.